Mouth breather. Imagine that there was a source of absolute ultimate knowledge where the unarguable truth of every aspect of reality could be known, and human beings had access to that source. Imagine that you had a switch in your head that you could activate just by thinking about it, and it would give you complete, total, accurate understanding of all relevant current and historical facts about a particular subject. Like, just by deciding to, you could learn everything that there was to know and everything that you could possibly ever need to know in order to make the most informed possible decision, and the just complete instant knowledge of everything within a particular domain, just by deciding you wanted it. And so let's say that you used that and you got access to all the knowledge that you could possibly ever need in order to conclusively answer the great questions of life, the universe, and everything. And the conclusion that you were brought to as a result from having accessed absolute truth and 100% total knowledge of every aspect of it that matters, you were brought inevitably to the conclusion that there's no plan to the universe, life has no purpose, everything is a waste of time, and nothing that you've done has ever made things better in any meaningful sense. If you learned that, would you regret having learned that? Would you wish for blissful ignorance over complete and total knowledge that the answer is worse than you could ever have feared? So, the reason that I bring up this hypothetical, it occurred to me in the shower, which I am still wet from. I'm a little embarrassed about the large splotch of water that my long hair always leaves behind whenever I wash it. But so I had this thought, and it occurred to me. So you might look at that knowledge and then wish that you didn't have it, and you might want to erase it from your mind, but then, having forgotten that you learned the truth, you might choose to learn the truth again. So you would need to erase that knowledge from your memory banks and then put a label over the resulting empty space saying you don't want to know what the answer is. So my reason for bringing all this up is that it seemed to me as though this little thought experiment was a potential answer to the God question. Despite having always had atheistic or agnostic or dystheistic or polytheistic leanings that indicate that the concept of a singular God is nonsensical, I've never been able to quite leave the question alone. I look at it, and it seems to me as though it is so ridiculously obvious that even a really stupid person would look at it and just call bullshit. It doesn't seem persuasive on even the most minimal level. So, one possible answer is that I've really underestimated exactly how stupid people can be, but looking at the fact that a bunch of really smart people can become persuaded of at least a version of Christian or Jewish or pseudo-Christian theology, so some version or another of the God-flavored, some recipe for God-flavored pie that may or may not be the original version that it's named for, but is something along those lines. Like, if it looks stupid, but even smart people like it, then it's probably not actually as stupid as it looks. That's my current logical deduction, is that there's obviously some ridiculous things in there, but that a lot of this comes from listening to really smart from people like who seem smart to me, like Jordan Peterson. So when you look at Jordan Peterson's talks, I've strongly considered doing a point-by-point rebuttal of the episode of Surrounded that he was on, and it often seems as though a certain amount of what he says may be intentional intellectual dishonesty, but that he is very smart nonetheless. So he maybe is just like, resorting to some slightly underhanded tactics because he's in a intellectual death battle against people who want to destroy him. So he may have mastered certain techniques for not getting rhetorically pinned down, which make it seem as though he doesn't have a strong core belief, but he also says other things that make me believe that he does have a strong core belief, and that he's very, very careful about not telling people exactly what it is, because those people may be malicious and may use any knowledge that they get on him to try and destroy him. So that's my interpretation of his character, and he's not the subject of this video. I'm just using him as kind of an example. A lot of people that are similarly very intellectually agile. Another example is Charlie Kirk, who of course was famously killed this week, or at this point it was last week, I think. So that's in the air, and he was also on an episode of Surrounded, which I watched well after both his death and after I had watched the Jordan Peterson one. And my conclusion from watching that episode was that Surrounded is a very shitty show and that I shouldn't pay attention to it. So the question that I opened this video with seems like it is a potential answer to the paradoxical question of why would a perfect God create an imperfect universe, which is one, among other things, that question, that's one of your kind of standard Redditor atheist sort of questions that gets used to try and destroy theological debate very often. And so I'm quoting it not because I wanted to quote it from the Charlie Kirk Surrounded, but I'm bringing it up because I have asked myself that question, I've asked the universe that question, and this seems like it's an interesting possible answer, or an illustration of the answer. The possibility that the answer is one that you wouldn't want to know is not what I'm postulating, but the possibility that could be the truth. Like if you live in a world of binary yes-no, where there's only truth and lies and nothing in between, then decision-making algorithms are very simple and straightforward, and they don't have any wiggle room to them. But that's not the world that we live in. We live in a tremendously complex world, and there's all sorts of shades of meaning and different approaches that different people have to different outlooks on the world. And regardless of whether that's good or bad, it's interesting. So I think that the thought that I had in the shower was that this was a potential solution for the paradoxical question of why the world needs to be a confusing mishmash of various outlooks that are difficult to reconcile. Like, history is always vanishing into the rearview mirror. We don't actually know what happened. We only know what people at the time thought was going on, and from the records that they wrote down, and often we don't have complete ones. So truth is very difficult to get at, and it is possible that so one of the Christian doctrines that I have a hard time reckoning with is the concept of the best of all possible worlds. Really stupid, simplistic interpretations of Christian theology say that God is all-powerful and he can do literally anything, and also has perfect knowledge and perfect benevolence, so everything that he did was the best possible version of that thing, and it's really hard to take that doctrine seriously if you're at all thoughtful or pay attention to the details of reality in any real way. So this is a potential pin on the board towards that. Is maybe it would be possible to have a world where truth is straightforward, but by creating that, you would inevitably rob human beings of their ability to feel that their lives have meaning, which human beings apparently need, or at least a lot of them do, so that the society would not continue if that truth were widely known and accepted and understood to be inevitable, that people need the ambiguity. They need the paradox to be capable of soldiering on in spite of all the difficulties of life, because the part of their brain that doesn't know the answer to be yes or no certainly is the part of their brain which is able to say, well, maybe this is worth it. I don't have proof that it is, but I don't have proof that it isn't either, and so I choose to believe. So that's an interpretation of free will. That's a potential apologetic as to why the problem of evil exists. And I'm probably, the 50 billionth person to think up that explanation across history, but it has not been bandied around in the circles that I've intellectually traveled in. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a new observation, and it seemed like a profound one. I think I did a better job of explaining it in the shower before. But, fresh from the headlines, I have time on my hands, and no other immediately obvious topic material to record a video about during this lengthy weekend that I have due to momentary interruption in my workflow. So it seemed like it was something that I could belabor for a while, and have now done so. So as long as I have a runtime I want to pad out, even though you're not seeing this shirt at its best, I do want you to see it, because this is one of several shirts that I got at the Minnesota State Fair in 2023. A very lovely picture of an eagle. This was being sold as a fundraiser thing for an organization called Last Chance Forever, which is a bird of prey rescue in Texas, and they used to always come up to the Minnesota State Fair every year and put on 3 shows a day, and generally had a packed audience, so about 100 or so people would show up to see them every time they had their show. So it was a pretty good way of getting the word out that this organization is doing nice things for the birds down in Texas. And I was a great admirer of theirs, and they also sold 5X shirts, which almost nobody does, and really nice shirts being sold for a very reasonable price, which somehow also allows them to collect fundraiser money, like they're getting them even cheaper than that, and it was still not a bad price to pay for them. So I bought 7 for, I think they were $20 each, which is not, in my opinion, an unreasonable price for a shirt. And so, I spent $140 in 2023, and then they didn't show up last year, and I heard that it was because of an avian flu going around, and then they didn't show up this year, and I didn't get an explanation of why. So at this point, 2 years in a row that they weren't here, I'm not going to assume that they will show up next year. I certainly will be delightfully surprised if they do. But so the 7 shirts that I bought that one time, I was really looking forward to getting more, but it turns out that they are the last opportunity that I had, and this is my favorite of the lot. The dark gray color is a color that I really like. It's the only one that has this particular design. I'm a really big fan of it. So I'm glad that it happened to be the shirt that I had to put on today, and a lot of my old favorite shirts now exist only in the mouth breather videos. And if I had known that would happen, I would certainly have gone out of my way to preserve some of my better ones back in the day. But the world is this very imperfect place, and I have a lot of trouble coping with that fact, because it seems blatantly obvious to me that everything should be different, that every truth should be changed, and as I get older, I'm warming slowly to the idea that everything is not always what seems obvious to me. Like the truth is probably more complicated than I'm giving credit for, and I should not arrogantly assume that everything that I don't understand can't be understood. You have to eventually get to a point in your life where you accept that that's youthful arrogance, and you stop doing it. So, not the best job I've ever done of getting one of my shower-born thought explosions committed to the digital record, but I guess it'll do. Hopefully you'll see me again soonish.